It's unusual how something can be so devious, yet hide behind whispers, barely loud enough to be heard, yet strong enough to be felt. I couldn't tell you the exact time I first heard it, that first time when the quiet, yet diminishing voice rose from somewhere deep within, latching onto my thoughts like thorns. Maybe it was in the small failures, a poorly given presentation, a moment of awkward silence in a conversation, those moments when vulnerability feels like your identity, exposing every flaw. At first, it was a quiet echo, easy to ignore, but echoes, if left unchecked, have a way of multiplying, stacking over themselves until they become the only voice you hear. And there I was. Those quiet voices of doubt grew stronger, their tone sharper, more persistent. What once was a quiet question, "Are you sure you're good enough?" turned into a fact that made me doubt every action, every decision. The voice knew exactly when to strike, slipping into the spaces between hope and purpose, poisoning them with whispers of worthlessness. I couldn't help but look at the mirror, pointing out every flaw. It was there in the silence. I asked myself, is this really all I have to offer? Reminding me why others will always be better, why I shouldn't even bother. I didn't lose my confidence overnight. It was a slow, painful separation, thread by thread. Each doubt fed into the next, wrapping itself tighter until it was hard to remember a time when I wasn't fighting against myself. And the irony was heavy, wanting so badly to move forward, to become something more, only to feel stuck by chains I couldn't see but could feel with every passing second. This inner voice was ruthless, pretending to be the truth, saying phrases like, "You'll never be enough," or "Why try? We both know you'll fail." It was draining, this constant tug of war between who I wanted to be and who I believed I was. The voice didn't just come at your confidence, it fell into everything, blurring the line between common sense and unshakable fear. It was there when I gave in, when I second-guessed, when I let moments slip right by me, because it was easier to listen than to fight. I remember a day when it was louder than usual, like an earthquake rumbling in my mind, feeding on every insecurity until it was ear-piercing. It left me drained, my purpose caught in doubt. I sat there, staring at unfinished work, the weight of self-hate pressing on my chest. Why was it so hard to get rid of a voice that wasn't even real? Why did it hold so much power? But that's the thing about darkness. It works in silence, in unspoken fears, and for far too long, I let that voice define me, creating not just how I saw myself, but how I existed in the world. It was an invisible war, a war between hope and a force that felt invincible. I didn't know it then, but accepting the voice, looking at it as the seed of my own creation, was the first step. The war was far from over, but there, in all the noise, was the smallest sign of growth, of something new, a question that raised a challenge to the darkness. What if this voice is wrong? There are moments that stand out with a painful clarity, memories that feel stitched into my brain, moments when the voice inside grew loud enough to disappear everything else. It wasn't just a quiet noise anymore. It was a force that decided my choices, controlled my behavior, held me locked in an invisible grip. I remember sitting at my desk with an opportunity, an idea right in front of me, a door waiting to be opened. All I needed was a leap of faith, a simple act of courage, but the voice in my head whispered in rejection, causing hesitation in every thought. Why try? You'll fail. You're not good enough. You don't deserve this. I listened, and the opportunity passed. The chance slipped through my fingers like sand. The regret came in slowly, like an unwelcomed visitor who refused to leave. It laughed at the sorry state of my confidence, already broken and cracked. What hurt most was not just the loss, but the realization of it. The hard, proven truth that it was my own fear that had stopped me, that I had willingly let the voice control me. In the quiet aftermath, I wondered how many other dreams had died this way, killed before they had the chance to breathe. Doubt is like a bad relationship. It demands your trust and betrays it in the same breath. It tells you it's keeping you safe, away from the emptiness of failure, but all it does is kill the part of you that wants to grow. There were days when I lived life at its bare minimum, making choices so small and so safe that left no room for disappointment. But that way of life came at a cost, a shallow emptiness inside, heavy and diminishing. And then there was another battle, that confrontation between the person I was and the person I wanted to become. I could see them, distant but clear, standing on the other side of a ravine I didn't know how to cross. The voice of ambition whispered quietly, pushing me forward, but it was overpowered out by the roar of doubt. The simplest tasks were battles. Social interactions became a battle where I judged every word, putting it against an imaginary standard that I could never reach. I became great at hiding it, using fake confidence over the cracks, hiding hesitation with fake smiles. But under all that, the voice was always there, reminding me of every little flaw, every past mistake. It was disheartening to want want so much but feel so useless in actually making it a reality. It was like looking at life through glass, able to see but never touch. Questions started to race in my mind. Was it worth trying if the end was unknown? Was the risk of failure better than the regret of never knowing? The voice, constant in its hate, told me it wasn't, and for a while I believed it. I let fear hide itself as wisdom, listened to it as if it were a friend protecting me from pain. But in those rare, quiet moments, another question would appear, soft and strong. What if I'm wrong? What's truly on the other side? There comes a time when the weight of doubt becomes so unbearable that something inside starts to fight back. A glimmer of resistance twinkling in the darkness. It wasn't dramatic or sudden. It was a slow, unsure realization, quiet as a whisper. The voice that had haunted me for so long, relentless in its hate, wasn't some out-of-this-world force. It felt real, but it was not the truth. That grasp changed everything, or at the very least, it gave a crack in the wall that had locked me away. I began to see the voice for what it was, a pattern created into the path of my thoughts, a constant scream from moments long gone. It sounded familiar, speaking the tones of old fears, repeating stories of failure that I had unconsciously fed. It was strange, knowing the fact that this voice was not some outside force pushing its will on me, but instead something I had let grow by my own doing. The realization was painful, yet liberating. It meant that if I could see it, I could fight it. The first attempts to fight back were clumsy and embarrassing, like trying to speak a foreign language. I would catch the voice mid-sentence, "You're not good enough," and force myself to stop it, to replace it with words that felt weird at first. Empty pep talk that felt more like wishful thinking than truth. I am enough, I am trying, and this is worth something. The words felt like lies at first, barely louder than the hate they tried to fight, but I said it over and over, day after day, until it began to take away strength from my doubt. It wasn't easy. There were days when my mind reverted to its old ways, replaying scenes of failure, over-exaggerating flaws until they were all I could see. But this time, I was expecting it. I could see the pattern, noticed when a loss would bother me, or when someone's innocent comment would get stuck in my brain, causing insecurity to grow. Noticing this didn't silence the voice immediately, but it gave me the strength to fight back, to question it instead of giving up. Why do I believe this? Who told me this was true? Sometimes I needed more than my own words to quiet my mind. I leaned on those who cared for me, though it was difficult to open up about the silent war that had lasted so long. I learned that there is power in vulnerability, in admitting that I needed help. Their reassurance became a shield, a reminder that not everything the voice said was real, that maybe my worth wasn't defined by its criticisms. With their support, I began to associate myself in moments that proved the voice wrong. Small achievements, sudden smiles, goals completed without the dumb standard of being perfect. And slowly but surely, I started to believe in my ability to change. The voice didn't go, not by a long shot, but its power weaker with each fight, each affirmation, each act of courage that went against its control. It was a battle fought in silence, with words spoken within, in the quiet moments between breaths. And for the first time, I felt hope. It was weak, but it existed, and for once I believed I could fight the voice and win. Progress did not come in a perfect straight line, not in back-to-back wins that shut my inner voice for good, but in moments so small they were almost forgotten. It was in the subtle come-up after failure, the deep breath before panic sets in, learning to respond to the voice that used to decide my every thought. It wasn't about getting rid of it. It was about learning to talk back, to replace its hate with something kinder, something that came from truth rather than fear. I started to notice the moments that felt different, times when, instead of letting the voice take control over me, I instead answered it with a simple, quiet resistance. When a mistake would make that instinctive, hateful whisper, "You always ruin everything," I would stop, sometimes in the loneliness of my own mind, sometimes out loud in an empty room, and remind myself, mistakes are part of growth. You are learning. It wasn't always convincing. Some days the words felt fake, being exposed by disbelief, but over time, they started to hold weight. The hardest part was creating compassion for myself, a compassion that felt unknown, even indulgent at first. How do you show kindness to the person you've blamed for every one of your failures, every opportunity missed? Yet, bit by bit, I began to understand that accepting my flaws wasn't the same as giving them a pass. It was about seeing myself as a person, flawed, yet moving forward, worthy of the same forgiveness I so easily gave to others. This change didn't quiet the voice completely, but it made space for a new one that sounded like understanding, like patience. It was in those times that a powerful realization took place. Self-acceptance is not a destination, but a practice, an act of resistance against years of self-put doubt. There were days when that voice still showed itself, darker, and more venomous than I expected. Times when I would stumble back into old habits, questioning everything, feeling worthless. But this time, I looked at those moments as part of the process, not proof of failure, but proof of progress. And each time I got up a little faster, recovered a little stronger, I learned to celebrate the accomplishments I once would have saw as nothing. The quiet confidence of choosing to rest without guilt. The strength it took to say I am enough and mean it, even if only for a second. Over time, those seconds piled together, each one supporting a new perspective, one that didn't deny the struggles, but looked at them as proof of growth. I came to terms that the voice of doubt might never leave completely, that it would wander in the corners of my mind, waiting for moments of weakness, but it no longer decided who I was or what I could become. It was simply one voice among many, no longer the loudest, no longer the one I believed without question. This path was never about getting rid of doubt. It was about building strength that beats it. It was about finding peace in the tension between who I was and who I was becoming, embracing a version of myself that was always there, hidden under the chaos, strong and resilient. Although the path was anything but straight, it led me here, to a place where hope felt achievable, where being worthy was not a question, but a quiet, factual truth.